Are you ready to wake up? Did you know that Joe Biden's family has received gobs of money from Russia? But wait, you say, isn't Biden all in for Ukraine?
I'm fascinated.
In 2019, the New York Times reported that Hunter Biden was earning more than $50,000 a month from the energy firm Burisma. Left-wing media and right-wing commentators call Burisma a Ukrainian company. Nope. The CEO of Burisma was a key figure in the pro-Kremlin government in KYIV, which fled to Russia during the 2014 uprising, when Ukrainians reclaimed their nation.
Burisma, which has links to the pro-Russian government, which had just been overthrown.
On the same day, Putin seized Crimea. Burisma's CEO met in Moscow with Hunter Biden's business partner. Putin's friends wanted to control Kyiv again. And what did Biden do? As the Obama administration's point man on Ukraine, he refused to send real support to Ukraine.
We offer them MREs, rations, baguettes.
Yes, the Biden administration claims to support the country.
As long as it takes.
But whenever Ukraine makes progress, the Biden administration, with ties to Moscow, speaks the language of limits.
Just because Russia hasn't responded to something doesn't mean that they can't or won't in the future.
They won't let Ukraine win.
Good morning, America.
The elites are lying to you about Ukraine. Ukraine's wild sense of freedom is a threat not only to the Kremlin, but to those who cling to power and corruption anywhere in the world. Leaders in the West, as well as the tyrants of the East, are afraid of well-armed people who believe in freedom. And this is why so many elites despise Ukraine's Azov Brigade.
Volunteer fighters who saved the nation from invaders remain armed and dangerous, and could always turn their weapons on their own government.
Who are the voices criticizing Ukraine's Azov Brigade? Elite globalist media, who think people who believe in faith, family, freedom, are an alien species. The Kremlin, which is threatened by people willing to take up arms to defend freedom of speech and religion. People who say they believe in traditional values, but who inexplicably laugh at those actually willing to fight.
It's true.
If your hometown were under attack, if you believe in God, the dignity of the human person, and in the wonder of freedom, you'd likely want something like the Azov Brigade.
We became a spearhead of the world fight against the tyranny, against the oppression, against the collective evil.
Christians, Jews, and Muslims who will give their lives for a way of life that is both traditional and tolerant.
As long as it takes.
But we don't want to see this war escalate.
It's about common sense.
For as long as it takes.
How do you justify not giving Ukraine permission to attack?
There's been no change in our policy.
As long as it takes.
This war escalate. We don't let this conflict escalate. Don't want to see this war escalate.
As long as it takes.
As long as what takes? The Biden administration's restrictions are the primary obstacle to Ukraine's victory. The White House consistently forbids Ukraine from targeting Russian missile launch sites on Russian soil.
Rocket attack that killed 30 people at the largest children's hospital. And how do you justify not giving Ukraine permission to attack?
There's been no change in our policy. You saw that the president...
This restriction creates a never-ending war that is hugely profitable for the U.S. defense industry, while making it increasingly difficult to justify continued American support to the public. The Biden White House is even restricting European countries from letting Ukraine use European-made weapons to stop Russian attacks on Ukrainian hospitals, schools, churches, and homes. President Biden, why are you stopping Ukraine from winning? You've never heard this about the Trump-Zelensky phone call. In 2014, Russia was paying Hunter Biden while Joe Biden did nothing to help Ukraine. Under dire threat here in Ukraine, we need to find the truth by questioning what we are told to believe. Congress impeached Trump the first time because of his July 2019 phone call with President Zelensky. Trump asked Zelensky to investigate Hunter Biden's dealings in Ukraine and Russia. But Trump wasn't the only one asking questions about Biden. Just 4 days before that call, the Washington Post ran a front-page story about alleged Biden corruption in Ukraine and Russia. And just 2 months before, the New York Times revealed that Burisma, a company run by a friend of Putin, paid gobs of money to Hunter Biden, the son of the sitting vice president. In turn, VP Biden, along with his advisor Jake Sullivan, ensured that the White House refused to help Ukraine fight back after Russia took Crimea.
They asked for weapons, and we said no.
Where Burisma has major gas fields. And do you know who Zelensky hired as his press secretary just a few weeks later? Yulia Mendel, the same reporter who broke the story of Hunter Biden's shady dealings with Burisma. Is it any wonder that Biden's support for Ukraine has been so tepid? Do you remember the headlines from 2019? The infamous Trump-Zelensky phone call, warnings of bio-warfare in China, controversies at 2 top biolabs in the USA and Canada, the US trying to stop China from buying a Ukrainian helicopter firm, revelations about Biden, Russia, and Ukraine, and stories of Hong Kongers inspired by Ukraine to hold onto their freedom. Let's take a chronological look at this curious year. And then what happened?
Jed, would you like me to hear your confession?
Does Washington feel guilty?
So your staff spent the weekend looking for a way out?
Yeah.
Like the kid in the right field who doesn't want the ball to get hit to him.
Never again. We hear it again and again. But just look at what the Russians did to KYIV on July 8th. America, which in a bipartisan way de-armed Ukraine, still hesitates to help.
Look, if
the USA, willing to make money from war, but not willing to send tools for victory, is turning Ukraine into a martyr for faith, family, freedom. The only place where people are willing to die for freedom is bleeding out. And ye of little faith are asleep, afraid and appeasing evil. Will you change your ways in time?
Jed, would you like me to hear your confession?
Yes, please. Bless me, Father, for I have sinned.
Sometimes I wonder what the old me say.
What?
If he can see the way shit is.
Who's the real power in shady Washington? In 2014, when Putin invaded Ukraine, VP Biden was running Obama's Ukraine policy with his then national security advisor, Jake Sullivan, mentee of Hillary and Obama.
Sullivan.
When Russia took Crimea from Ukraine, what did Obama, Biden, Sullivan do? Nothing. They refused to send weapons to Ukraine, despite America's 1994 promise of protection.
I feel terrible about it.
And a bipartisan de-arming of free Ukrainians. Also in 2014, Joe Biden's son started taking money from a Moscow-connected firm, Burisma, that benefited from Putin taking Crimea. So, Trump was accurate when he said Ukraine was not invaded on his watch. It already had been.
Encouraged Russia from going in.
Now, Jake Sullivan is more powerful than ever as national security advisor to, well,
if
After 2 years of full-scale Russian war, Sullivan does all he can to slow the trickle of weapons to Ukraine.
he doesn't need F-16s now.
Where are the tools to win? The same people making each crisis worse.
He can see the way shit is today. He probably say that everything is.
So, good job, Jake. We invite you to follow our channel, the only American show reporting live from Ukraine every day.